Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Taurus, which is happening on October 24th at 1 degree of Taurus. At every full moon, the sun and moon are opposed in the exact same degree. So the sun is at 1 degree of Scorpio. The sun is just getting into the sign of Scorpio. So we have the moon at 1 degree of Taurus. So what is this opposition all about? Taurus rules the second house of earned income, and it deals with the money that we earn and our possessions. And Taurus is an earth sign. It's also a fixed sign. So the sign of Taurus, and if you know a Taurus person, if you are a Taurus person, you know that there is a strong desire to possess things and even people when you have a prominent Taurus position. And the material is very important because Taurus is an earth sign. And also, love and beauty play a role here because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So luxury is associated with Venus, and just kind of sensuality, we would say, especially with Taurus as opposed to Libra, the other sign that is ruled by Venus, because Taurus is an earth sign, that earthiness as opposed to the air that is more on that abstract level of Libra. And so with the moon in Taurus, our emotional nature is very steadfast. And there is that sensuality that accompanies it. But with the second house, we're also talking about self-esteem. And this is where it gets tricky, because what can often happen with any planets in the second house, or the prominent effect of, whether it's the sun in Taurus, or if you have maybe the moon in your natal chart in the second house, where there is a strong identification with the money that you make and the things that you own. And really, when you get right down to it, I think this is kind of the core of materialism, is that it's not just about, people can just throw around terms like greed and hoarding. But I think hoarding is this fear-based behavior that is coming from a position of lack consciousness, where a person feels like they have to stockpile in order to feel safe emotionally. There's no physical danger with these people, because if you have the ability to hoard, it means that you have an excess. So we really have to think about these things at this full moon. What is going on with your life? What can you get rid of that is holding you back? Because you might have heard the term possessed by your possessions. In developed countries, this is a real concern. I remember when I went back to college in my 30s, and I went to a community college, and I had a wonderful professor who I was taking an English course, literature course, and we were reading Thoreau, and I think he was probably pretty influenced by Thoreau, as I recall, but we read this essay by Thoreau, and he said, simplify, simplify, simplify. And what he did was, I'm sure many people are familiar with Walden Pond and that kind of thing, where he was looking at how much energy it takes to buy certain things. So he was like looking at everything from the perspective of, this is so much time that you have to spend to earn the money to buy that pair of shoes, or, I can't remember exactly what he was talking about buying, because this was, the 1800s. So I don't know exactly what kind of spending they were doing then besides the basic essentials. But it was really fascinating because it made me think in those terms. A lot of times as consumers, we tend to just buy things without saying, wow, that took me X amount of time. And, that could have been a real lot of even physical work and a strenuous work to be able to afford something that you may not even use that much. And I think with today's credit issue, that people just put things on plastic and they don't even really have to think about it because they didn't earn it. They get it before they earned it. And that can be a bad habit. And likewise, even just having a debit card, they're taking money out of your bank account, but there's not that tangible sense of forking over the actual dollars. So it becomes abstract, and it's easier to spend money in a wasteful sort of way. But when we think about sensuality and engaging the senses, there's something to be said about pleasure. That is, I would say, at the crux of what Venus represents is pleasure. Think of the Empress in the Tarot. And do we have to give up pleasure in order to live a more orderly life? In order to kind of have a greater handle over our expenses? I would say no. And I'm Taurus rising, so I will defend pleasure completely. But I think we can maybe shift our attitude about what is pleasurable. Some things that are pleasurable, maybe they're not so much. Maybe you can find simple pleasures in life that don't even cost money. I mean, seriously. And having a minimalistic lifestyle where maybe even in your physical space, there's more room to kind of breathe. That might be something to consider, because full moons can be a time to let go, to purify, to purge, to, come to an awareness about, and in this case, we're talking about these second house matters connected to Taurus, and maybe any kind of situation of something that we deem pleasurable that's actually inhibiting our better sense of well-being. The second house, being the house of self-esteem, can also be, connected with that is a sense of feeling worthy. So even if it comes about in terms of connects to the money that you earn, it might be a time of a eureka moment where you realize, I'm working at this job and I'm accepting a lot less than I deserve at this job because I don't have the self-esteem to believe that I deserve better than that. And that might be kind of a turning point for you. And you realize that you need to work on shedding. Again, this is a time of shedding some attitudes about not being deserving. Because this is part of the law of attraction, actually, is feeling worthy. A lot of times people think the law of attraction is just thinking good thoughts and attracting good things through your good vibes. But it's also examining the negative messages that reside within you, and questioning them, challenging them, and vowing to, flip the script. And so this can be a great time for that. Now, again, that sun is going to be in the 8th house of other people's money. So this kind of highlights how perhaps you feel maybe controlled by somebody else's money, and in kind of that seesaw effect. If you're in a marriage or the equivalent type of relationship, perhaps it has to do with something about shared resources and your contribution. Are you paying too much and somebody isn't paying enough? And not being tit for tat about it, but perhaps you are, again, because of self-esteem, allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Looking at some of the other things that are going on at this time, we have a conjunction between the Sun and Venus, which is really good for basic romantic things. Full moons can be very fertile times, and a sense of great power. And with the Sun in conjunction with Venus, that can be a time where you're feeling really good about yourself and maybe about somebody else in your life. Like maybe there's a lot of harmony between you and another person, and it's easy for you to be in alignment with that person. However, emotionally, it may need an adjustment because we have an opposition between the Moon and Venus. So this can indicate, and this is not a long-term transit, this is just kind of a brief thing, but looking at your attitudes, your emotions in relationships, and whether or not you're too codependent or you are too, perhaps in some cases, individualistic, where you're not devoting enough attention to a partner. But it's not just attention, it's about your emotions being engaged. And for some people, they overdo it in terms of not having enough independence and maybe smothering a person emotionally. And some people are not affectionate enough. This is also a time of great excess when it comes to Mars is forming a square with Jupiter. And so there may be people, and, because we have the Sun in Scorpio, this gets into a kind of an intensity of emotion in general. But we can have people, and Mars is in Aquarius, it's very rebellious, that are acting a fool because they have delusions of grandeur, and they think that they have this superpower, that they're going to do something that's going to change the world, and really they may get themselves in a world of trouble. Don't be one of those people. What day of the week is this going to occur? Let me see if I have the date. It's on a Wednesday, thank goodness. So chance, if it's on a weekend, these full moons, that could be a little bit more hairy. But it's smack dab in the middle of the week, hump day. So thankfully, the square between Mars and Uranus, which has been with us for so long, is starting to weaken, because while they're both in fixed signs, and Mars is progressing in degrees now that it's direct, and Uranus is retrograding. So they're kind of pulling apart there. And we have a nice angle, a nice trine between Venus and Neptune, which can indicate a lot of kind of spiritual love being recognized between two people, you know, maybe when they first meet. Although there is a square between Venus and the transing North Node. So this can be, you know, twin flames. There might be kind of timing issues where reunifying is not in the cards at the very moment, but or there's some kind of something is blocking that. But definitely spiritual connection through love, and also a great time for visualization. And full moons are great times in general for manifestation, with Mercury trine Neptune. So the intuition is flowing very well, and people who utilize this energy may be quite successful in those manifestations through visualization. Lots of challenging stuff to Uranus, even though Mars isn't really engaged too much. We have the Sun in opposition to Uranus, the Moon in conjunction with Uranus, and Venus in opposition to Uranus. Basically, the Venus opposing Uranus is this sense of freedom within relationship, maybe feeling really rebellious, and especially those in long-term relationships, where rejecting that situation. And with the Sun and Moon in fixed signs, and Taurus and Scorpio, Taurus, respectively, this can be like people who have been experiencing jealousy in relationships and possessiveness, just saying, you know, don't try to control me. Remember that Leslie Gore's song, "You Don't Own Me"? This is something that people may kind of balk at, somebody trying to tell them that they have the right to tell them what to do because you're very rebellious right now. The Sun in opposition with Uranus is not wanting to conform to others. You know, in terms of who you came here to be, it's like somebody else may be trying to impose that upon you, and you saying, no way, I'm my own person. But, you know, there's a reactive element when you have an opposition there, a lack of integration, kind of an extreme reaction. The Moon in conjunction with Uranus is just a very emotionally independent nature. So it can be an easy time, I think, for people where a relationship has come to a head. And remember, as I said, the Sun has now entered Scorpio. So this can just by its very nature bring up those 8th house issues of intimacy. And some people who are afraid of intimacy or who do not like the intensity of their partner may just really feel a strong desire to break it off. And maybe they do. Maybe it's like a very sudden break from a partner. So we shall see, but it does seem like it's going to be quite, I think it'll be quite intense also because Uranus, as I recall hearing another astrologer and just looking at the ephemeris, I'm going to pull it up right now. I think Uranus, it's retrograding and it's going to be at 0 degrees of Taurus, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. So it will be hitting that. Yeah, it's going to be at 0 degrees. It's going to be forming a conjunction with the full moon. Now that will be a doozy in and of itself because Uranus retrograding is a doozy. And with that full moon, in Taurus. I mean, full moons, we already know that it can bring out a lot of interesting behavior in people. And Uranus is very erratic. And retrograding, it's even more erratic. So forming a conjunction, it's going to be quite interesting to see how people react. Some people may react in very emotionally, I'm talking about, in very unusual ways. So thank goodness it's on a Wednesday. That's all I can say. But it can be a great liberating time too. You know, don't get it twisted. It's a great time to break addictions because the full moon is a purging time and Uranus is about clean, sudden breaks and freedom. Freedom from that kind of oppression. And that can also include relationships, obviously. Okay, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this and take care. Bye.